The stars trembled as the massive human warship Defiance broke through the darkness of space. Commander Susan Miller stood at the command bridge, her eyes focused on the enemy fleet blocking their path to Earth. The Vex had appeared 5 years ago. Their ships like giant insects made of metal and light. They wanted human worlds for their growing empire. They thought humans would be easy prey. They were wrong. Susan touched the control panel. The ship hummed with power beneath her fingers. The Defiance was the newest Titan-class warship humanity had built. It was twice the size of any previous human vessel. Its hull gleamed with specialized armor that could absorb energy attacks. Lieutenant Lisa Brown approached Susan with a data pad, her red hair tied back in a tight bun, her face serious. Commander, the Vex fleet has 23 warships. They are forming a blockade pattern. They have not detected us yet thanks to our stealth systems. Susan nodded. Good. Our mission is clear. We need to break that blockade so our colony ships can escape. The civilians on Proxima Station need this escape route. The communication screen lit up. Admiral Kate Wilson appeared. Her face looked tired but determined. Commander Miller, this is your moment. The Defiance is the most powerful ship we have ever built. Show the Vex what humanity can do. Yes, Admiral. We will not fail. The bridge crew worked at their stations, each focused on their tasks. Officer Tanya Rogers at weapons control, her fingers dancing. Across the tactical display, Officer Maria Jones at navigation, her eyes never leaving the star map. Lieutenant Samantha Green at shield control, her face calm, despite the danger ahead. Susan took a deep breath. Prepare main cannons. Target the lead. Vex cruiser, divert power to forward shields. Navigator, plot a course straight through their formation. The Defiance moved forward, its massive engines pushing it toward the enemy. The stealth systems would fail once they fired, but surprise was all. They needed enemy ships still unaware of our presence. Lisa reported weapons hot and ready. Susan gripped the command rail. Fire. The Defiance unleashed its fury. Beams of concentrated energy shot forth, striking the lead Vex ship. The alien vessel shuddered as its shields failed. The hull cracked open, spilling atmosphere and bodies into space. The Vex fleet responded immediately. Their ships turned toward the Defiance, insectoid vessels glowing with angry red energy. They are firing, Samantha called shields, holding at 87%. The Defiance pushed forward, its cannons firing in precise patterns. Officer Rogers targeted each ship with surgical precision. The Vex weapons struck the human warship, but the advanced shields held. Return fire pattern, Delta Susan ordered, and launch fighter squadrons from the belly of the Defiance. Small fighter craft emerged, each piloted by skilled human pilots. The fighters swarmed toward the Vex ships like angry hornets. Captain Diane Foster led the fighter squadron. Her voice came through the communication system. Blue Squadron engaged. We will cover your flank, Commander. The space battle intensified. Vex ships fired strange weapons that warped space itself. The Defiance shuddered under the assault. But the human ship was tough. Its weapons tore through 3 more Vex vessels. A sudden alarm blared. New contact. Lisa shouted, massive signature. Something big is coming through their lines. The stars seemed to bend as a massive Vex ship appeared. It dwarfed even the Defiance. Its surface covered with strange symbols that glowed with power. The Vex mothership. Susan whispered. We were told it might be here. The mothership fired. A beam of pure energy struck the Defiance. The shields flared bright blue, nearly failing shields. At 20%, Samantha reported one more hit like that, and we are done. Susan studied the tactical display, her mind racing through options. All power to the main cannon. We have one shot at this target, their central power core, but Commander Lisa protested. To get a clear shot, we would need to get dangerously close. I know, Lieutenant, sometimes victory requires risk. Navigator, take us in. Weapons, prepare to fire on my mark. The Defiance surged forward directly toward the massive alien vessel. Vex fighters swarmed around the human ship. The fighter squadron engaged them, keeping them away from the Defiance. The mothership prepared to fire again. its weapons glowing with building energy now, Susan ordered. The Defiance fired its main cannon. The beam struck the mothership precisely where Susan had aimed. The alien vessel shuddered. Energy cascaded across its surface in waves of destruction. The power core destabilized all. Engines full reverse. Get us out of here, Susan commanded. The Defiance pulled away as the Vex mothership began to break apart. Light erupted from within the alien vessel as its power systems failed catastrophically. The explosion lit up space like a new sun. The remaining Vex ships scattered, their formation broken, their command structure in chaos. Susan allowed herself a small smile. Send word to Admiral Wilson. The blockade is broken. The colony ships can proceed. Lisa looked up from her station, her face showing both exhaustion and joy. Commander, you did it. The Vex fleet is retreating. Susan shook her head. No, Lieutenant. We did it. All of humanity did it. Every engineer who built this ship, every scientist who developed our weapons, every crew member who fought today. This victory belongs to all of us. The Defiance turned toward Earth. Its mission complete, but the war far from over. The Vex would return with more ships, but humanity would be ready. Susan knew that this battle was just the beginning. But for the first time since the Vex appeared, humanity had hope as the ship headed home. Susan looked out at the stars. She thought about all the human worlds out there waiting to be defended. The fight would continue. But today they had proven that humanity would not fall easily, that humans fighting together could achieve the impossible. 3 days later, the Defiance docked at Earth Space Station Alpha. The crew tired but proud of what they had accomplished. Susan stood at the airlock. As Admiral Wilson came aboard, her uniform crisp and formal. Commander Miller, the Admiral said with a rare smile. You and your crew have done the impossible. You have given us valuable time. Susan saluted. Thank you, Admiral. But our work is not done, am I? Vex will regroup indeed. Wilson nodded. Follow me, we need to talk privately. Susan followed the Admiral to a secure meeting room. The walls designed to block any listening devices. The door sealed behind them with a soft hiss. What I am about to tell you is classified at the highest level, Wilson said, her voice low. We have intercepted Vex communications. They are calling for reinforcements. An armada 10 times the size of what you faced is coming. Susan felt her heart sink. How long do we have? 6 months, perhaps less. Wilson replied. We need a new strategy. The Defiance proved we can fight them, but we cannot win a war of attrition. What do you suggest? Admiral Wilson activated a holographic display. A strange device appeared, rotating slowly in the air. It looks like nothing Susan had ever seen before. This is Project Leviathan, Wilson explained. Our scientists reverse-engineered Vex technology from debris of ships we destroyed. It may be our only hope. What does it do? Susan asked, studying. The strange device, it creates a quantum disruption field. Wilson said, simply put it, stops their ships from using faster-than-light travel. If we can deploy it at their entry point to our solar system, we can force them to approach at sublight speed. That gives us years instead of days to prepare, but deploying it would be a suicide mission. Susan realized, looking at the plans, the device needed to be activated manually at the exact coordinates. Wilson nodded grimly. Yes, the ship carrying it would not return. Susan straightened her shoulders. The Defiance can do it. We can deploy the device. Wilson shook her head. No, Commander. The Defiance is too valuable. We need it to lead our defense fleet. We have an older vessel being retrofitted for this mission. Who will command it? Susan asked. Wilson looked directly into her eyes. That is why I wanted to speak with you. You're second in command. Lieutenant Brown has volunteered. Lisa. Susan whispered. Her friend, her trusted officer. She specifically requested. The assignment, Wilson said. She believes in the mission. Susan felt pride and sorrow mix in her chest. Lisa was the bravest officer she knew. But the thought of sending her on a one-way mission tore at her heart. Can I speak with her? Susan asked. Of course, Wilson replied. She is waiting outside. Lisa entered the room, her uniform neat as always, her face determined. There was no fear in her eyes, only resolve. Lisa. Why? Susan began. Because someone has to. Lisa said simply. And I believe in humanity. I believe we deserve to survive. Susan wanted to argue, but she saw the determination in Lisa's eyes. This was not a decision made lightly. When do you leave? Susan asked instead. Tomorrow, Lisa replied. The ship is nearly ready. Susan embraced her friend, breaking protocol, something she had never done before. You are the finest officer I have ever served with. Lisa smiled sadly. Thank you, Commander. It has been an honor. The next morning, Susan stood in the launch bay, the old cruiser. Freedom had been retrofitted for its final mission. The quantum device secured in its cargo hold, Lisa stood by the airlock, in her spacesuit, her red hair now cut short for the long journey. Susan handed her a small metal object, a medallion with the Earth emblem stamped on it. Bring this back to me someday, she said. Though both women knew it was impossible, Lisa took it and placed it in her pocket. I will do my best, Commander. They saluted each other one last time. Then Lisa boarded the Freedom. The airlock closed with finality. Susan watched as the ship departed, its engines glowing blue against the blackness of space. She stayed until it was no longer visible among the stars. For the next 3 months, Susan worked tirelessly. The Defiance was upgraded with new weapons systems. The crew trained day and night preparing for the coming battle. More Titan-class ships were rushed into production. Earth and its colonies prepared for war. Susan rarely slept. Her mind always on the preparations, but also on Lisa, somewhere in deep space on her solitary mission. One night as Susan worked late in her quarters, her communication screen activated. Admiral Wilson appeared. Her face grim. Commander, we have news. The Freedom has reached its destination. Lisa successfully deployed the device. Susan felt her throat tighten. Was there any communication from Lieutenant Brown? A short message. Wilson replied, patching it through. Lisa's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired, her eyes hollow from months alone in space. Mission accomplished. She said, the device is active. I repeat, the device is active. The Vex fleet will be forced into sublight travel. Tell Commander Miller. The Freedom did its duty. The message ended. Susan stared at the blank screen. She had known Lisa would not return, but hearing her final message made it real. Admiral Wilson spoke softly. Lieutenant Brown is a hero. Commander, her sacrifice will give us the time we need. Susan nodded, unable to speak. The next day, Susan addressed the crew of the Defiance. They stood at attention in the main hangar bay. Hundreds of men and women ready to fight. Yesterday, Lieutenant Lisa Brown completed her mission. She told them, the quantum disruption field is active. The Vex Armada will take approximately 2 years to reach our solar system at sublight speed. That gives us time. Time to build our forces. Time to prepare our defenses. Time to ensure that Lieutenant Brown's sacrifice was not in vain. The crew listened in silence. Many had known Lisa. Some had been her friends. We will not waste this opportunity. Susan continued, her voice growing stronger. We will be ready. When the Vex arrive, they will find not a scattered defense but a united human fleet. They will learn that taking Earth will cost them more than they are willing to pay. A cheer went up from the assembled crew. Susan raised her hand for silence. Starting, today we implement Operation Thunderbolt. Our engineers have developed new weapons based on Vex technology. Every ship in the fleet will be upgraded. Every pilot and crew member will train until they can fight in their sleep. We will be ready. Over the next year, humanity prepared. The colonies united under a single defense command. Production of warships accelerated. New technologies were developed. Weapons that could penetrate Vex shields. Armor that could withstand their energy. Weapons. Susan was promoted to Admiral, the youngest in Earth fleet history. She oversaw the integration of the new technologies. She personally tested the prototype weapons. She slept little, worked constantly. Her dedication inspired others. 18 months after Lisa's mission, a scout ship returned from the edge of the solar system with news the Vex Armada had been spotted. They were still months away, but they were coming, and they were more numerous than anyone had predicted. Susan studied the scout ships, data thousands of Vex vessels, a force that dwarfed anything humanity had faced before. For a moment, doubt crept into her mind. Could they really win against such overwhelming numbers? She pushed the thought away. Humanity had survived this long because they refused to give up, because people like Lisa were willing to sacrifice everything. Susan called a meeting of Fleet Command. The highest-ranking officers gathered in the war room on Space Station Alpha. The mood was tense. Everyone had seen the scout ships reports. Admiral Susan began. The Vex will reach Jupiter orbit in 3 months. Their numbers are greater than we anticipated. But we have prepared for this moment. We have new ships, new weapons, and most importantly, we have the will to survive. She activated the holographic display. A detailed battle plan appeared. This is Operation Spear of Dawn, she explained. We will not wait for the Vex to reach Earth. We will meet them at the edge of the solar system, a preemptive strike using everything we have. The other officers studied the plan. Some looked skeptical. Admiral Chen spoke up. This is incredibly risky. If we commit all our forces and fail, Earth will be defenseless. Susan nodded. It is risky, but sitting back and allowing them to dictate the terms of engagement is even riskier. Our advantage is that they do not expect us to attack. They believe we are weak, that we lack courage. She looked around the room, meeting each officer's eyes. I believe in this fleet. I believe in humanity. We have spent 2 years preparing for this moment. We will not waste Lieutenant Brown's sacrifice. We attack in 1 month. Any questions? The fleet assembled near Saturn. Its size impressive: 5 Titan-class warships, including the Defiance, now the flagship, hundreds of smaller cruisers and destroyers, thousands of fighter craft. The greatest collection of military might humanity had ever produced. Susan stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching as the ships moved into formation. Her new command uniform felt strange after years in her old one. But the responsibility was familiar. Officer Maria Jones, now promoted to lieutenant, approached. Admiral, we are receiving the final ships from Mars. They will be in position within the hour. Good. Susan replied. Are the new weapon systems online? Yes. Admiral Lieutenant Samantha Green confirmed. All Titan-class ships are equipped with the phase shift cannons. The technology adapted from Vex weapons. Our shields have been upgraded as well. Susan nodded. The fleet is as ready as it will ever be. She pressed the communication button, opening a channel to all ships. Attention, all vessels. This is Admiral Miller. In 12 hours we will depart for the Jupiter defense line. There we will meet the enemy. We will show them that humanity does not surrender, that we do not go quietly. We fight for Earth, for all our colonies, and for those who sacrificed so we could have this chance. Throughout the fleet, crews listened, officers and enlisted personnel alike. They had trained for this moment. Many were scared, but all were determined. The 12 hours passed quickly. Final preparations were made, weapons checked, shields tested, communications synchronized. At last the time came. All ships. Susan ordered, engage engines. Set course for Jupiter defense line. The fleet moved as one. A massive formation of human ingenuity and determination, and the ships accelerated their engines, pushing them toward their destination, toward the enemy, toward their fate. 3 days later, they reached the designated coordinates, Jupiter looming large in the view screens, its massive storms visible on its surface. Scout ships reported the Vex Armada approaching. They would arrive within hours. Susan called her senior officers for a final briefing. The mood was tense but focused. This is it, she said. What we have prepared for. The Vex do not know we are here. There, advanced scouts were eliminated by our stealth fighters. We have the element of surprise. Our plan is simple. The fighter squadrons will strike first, targeting their smaller vessels. Then the cruisers and destroyers will engage. drawing their main force into position. Finally, the Titan-class ships will unleash the phase-shift cannons on their command vessels. She looked at each officer, their faces showing determination and resolve. Any questions she asked? No questions were raised. They had drilled this plan countless times. Every officer knew their role. Susan nodded. Good, return to your stations. Battle stations in 30 minutes. The officers dispersed, leaving Susan alone on the command deck. She took a moment to herself, touching the small medallion she wore around her neck, the one identical to what she had given Lisa. She had made a copy for herself, a reminder of the sacrifice that had brought them to this moment. Susan took her position at the command center, the bridge crew at their stations. Officer Tanya Rogers now, Captain Rogers at weapons, Lieutenant Maria Jones at navigation. Lieutenant Samantha Green at Shield's enemy fleet detected. Captain Rogers reported, they are maintaining formation. No indication they have spotted us. Susan took a deep breath. Launch fighter squadron, she ordered. Execute phase 1. Throughout the fleet, fighter bays opened, small craft streamed out. They formed into attack groups, each with a specific target, each pilot knowing exactly what to do. The fighters accelerated toward the unsuspecting Vex fleet. They closed the distance quickly, their small size making them difficult to detect. Even when the Vex sensors finally registered their presence, it was too late. The human fighters struck with precision, their new weapons cutting through Vex shields. The smaller alien vessels exploded, creating chaos in the enemy formation. Phase 2. Susan commanded, her voice calm, despite the tension. The cruisers and destroyers moved forward, their weapons firing in coordinated salvos. The Vex fleet, now alerted to the human presence, responded, their larger ships turning to engage. The trap was set. The Vex commanders predictably sent their forces to crush what they perceived as the main human attack. They did not realize the Titan-class ships were hanging back, waiting. Susan ordered all Titan-class vessels advance, prepare phase-shift cannons. The massive human warships moved into position, their engines glowing bright against the darkness of space, their weapon systems powering up, drawing enormous energy. Target their command ships. Susan ordered. Fire when ready. The phase-shift cannons activated. For a moment they seemed to do nothing. Then reality itself appeared to bend around the targeted Vex vessels. Space twisted. The alien ships distorted as though being viewed through warped glass, then they simply ceased to exist. The phase-shift weapons had worked. They had shifted the enemy vessels partially out of normal space, destroying them utterly. Vex fleet, suddenly without leadership, fell into disarray, their formation collapsing, their coordination gone. All vessels, Susan called, press the attack. The human fleet surged forward, every ship firing every weapon, human fighters darting between larger vessels targeting vulnerable points. The Vex fought back, their weapons still dangerous, their numbers still vast. The battle raged for hours, explosions lighting up space, ships from both sides falling. Vex vessels were destroyed in greater numbers, but humanity suffered losses as well. 3 cruisers lost, a destroyer crippled, hundreds of fighters failing to return. The Defiance shuddered as enemy fire struck its shields. Susan gripped the command rail. Damage report, she demanded. Shields at 60%, Lieutenant Green replied. Hull integrity holding. Susan studied the tactical display. The Vex fleet was breaking apart, some vessels already retreating, but a large group was gathering, forming a new attack formation. They are targeting us specifically, Captain Rogers warned. Their remaining capital ships are concentrating fire on the Defiance. Susan narrowed her eyes. So the Vex leadership had identified the flagship. They hoped to decapitate the human command structure. Not today, she thought, evasive. Maneuver, she ordered. Target their lead capital ship with the phase-shift cannon. The Defiance turned sharply, its massive engines straining against inertia. The Vex weapons fire mostly missed, but one beam struck directly. Alarms blared throughout the ship, shields down to 30%. Lieutenant Green called structural damage. On decks 12 through 15, Captain Rogers focused on her targeting controls. Phase-shift cannon charged and locked. She reported target acquired fire. Susan commanded. The phase-shift cannon fired again. The fabric of space warped around the targeted Vex capital ship. The alien vessel seemed to fold in on itself, then vanished. But something was wrong. Energy surge. Captain Rogers shouted, "The phase shift cannon is overloading." Susan reacted instantly. Shut it down. Divert power away from the weapon. It was too late. The experimental weapon had been pushed too hard. Used too many times in succession, a feedback loop had formed. Energy cascaded through the ship's systems. Circuits overloaded. Systems failed. Weapons offline. Captain Rogers reported engines at half-power, shield generators failing. Susan made a quick decision. The Defiance was crippled, but the battle was turning in humanity's favor. The Vex fleet was in disarray, their coordination broken. Their most powerful ships destroyed. All hands, this is Admiral Miller. She called over the ship's communication system. Prepare to abandon ship, repeat. Prepare to abandon ship. But Admiral Lieutenant Jones protested. We can still fight. The Defiance cannot. Susan replied. But we can save the crew. Take what? We have learned into the next battle. Evacuation pods launched from the Defiance carrying the crew to safety. Other human vessels moved to protect the flagship covering the evacuation. Susan remained on the bridge with a skeleton crew, making sure everyone else got out. Only when the last evacuation pod had launched did Susan and the remaining bridge officers head for the final escape vessel. They raced through corridors, some damaged from the battle. They reached the pod bay. Violent explosion rocked the ship. Susan was thrown against a bulkhead. Pain shot through her side. A hull breach warning sounded. Go. Susan ordered the others, pushing them toward the last pod. Get to safety. Captain Rogers hesitated. We will not leave you, Admiral. There is no time for debate, Susan snapped. That is an order, Captain. The officers reluctantly entered the pod. Susan tried to follow, but another explosion knocked her down. The deck pitched beneath her. The pod bay door began to close automatically. A safety measure when detecting hull breaches, go. Susan shouted. The pod launched just as the doors sealed. She was alone on the dying ship. Susan pulled herself up, pain making it difficult to breathe. She made her way to the nearest emergency station. Sealing the compartment against vacuum, activating the emergency life support. She knew it was temporary. The ship was breaking apart around her. She tapped her communication device, hoping it still worked. This is Admiral Miller, she said. Defiance is lost. Repeat. Defiance is lost, but the battle continues. Press the attack. Do not let them regroup. Susan did not know if anyone heard her message, but she had done her duty. The fleet knew what to do. The plan was working. The Vex were being pushed back. She made her way painfully to a viewport, wanting to see the battle one last time. The human fleet was magnificent, fighting with coordination and courage. The Vex, in contrast, were scattered, their remaining ships either fighting individually or fleeing victory. Was within grasp, Susan realized humanity would survive. This day at least, a strange light caught her attention. A small ship approaching the Defiance, not Vex design, not standard human design either. It maneuvered with precision, avoiding debris. Heading directly for her location, Susan watched confused as the ship docked with the Defiance, somehow finding an intact airlock. The ship's computer reported a pressure seal. Someone was coming aboard. Susan reached for her sidearm, unsure what to expect. The inner airlock door opened. A figure in a spacesuit entered, removing their helmet. Susan gasped. It was impossible. Lisa Brown stood before her, older. Her face lined with experience, her red hair now streaked with gray. But unmistakably Lisa. How Susan whispered, "You were on a suicide mission." Lisa smiled. The freedom was lost, yes, but I survived. The Vex found me, captured me. I learned their language, their technology. I escaped when I saw the battle begin. I knew you would be here. Lisa helped Susan to her feet. We need to go. The Defiance is breaking up. I have a ship together. They made their way to the airlock, every step painful for Susan. The ship groaning around them. They reached Lisa's ship, just as another section of the Defiance depressurized. Lisa's ship was small, strange in design, a hybrid of human and Vex technology. They strapped in Lisa at the controls, Susan in the co-pilot seat, as they pulled away from the Defiance. Susan looked back at her ship. One last time, the mighty vessel that had carried them through so much. Now breaking apart, energy discharges flickering across its hull. "Where did you get this ship?" Susan asked as Lisa piloted them away from the battle. "I built it," Lisa replied. "From Vex parts and salvage. The quantum device did more than slow them down. It gave me access to their network. I learned things, Susan. Things that will change everything." Susan wanted to ask more, but pain overwhelmed her. The injury to her side worse than she had thought. Her vision began to darken. Lisa noticed Susan. "Hang on," she urged her friend. "We are almost to safety." Susan fought to stay conscious. She saw through the viewport the human fleet victorious, the Vex in full retreat. "We won," she whispered. "Yes," Lisa confirmed, "this battle. But the war continues. The Vex are just one species. There are others out there, some worse, some better. I have seen them." Susan struggled to understand what Lisa was saying, but it was becoming harder to focus. Lisa reached out, taking Susan's hand. "I promised to bring this back," she said. She opened her palm, revealing the Earth medallion Susan had given her before her mission. Susan smiled weakly. "Thank you," she said. 3 days later, Susan woke in a medical bay. The pain in her side reduced to a dull ache. Admiral Kate Wilson stood beside her bed. "Welcome back," Admiral Wilson said with relief. "The doctors were not sure you would make it." Susan tried to sit up. "Where am I? What happened to the fleet? You are on Earth Space Station. Alpha," Wilson explained. "The fleet was victorious. The Vex have been driven from our solar system. We believe they will not return. Our intelligence suggests they have determined humanity is too costly to subjugate. They have other easier targets." And Lisa, Susan asked, "Where is Lieutenant Brown?" Wilson looked confused. "Lieutenant Brown? The officer who died deploying the quantum device. She is alive," Susan insisted. "She rescued me from the Defiance." Wilson shook her head gently. "Admiral, you were rescued by a patrol ship. They found your emergency beacon. You were alone." Susan frowned. Had she imagined it? The rescue, Lisa returning, but it had seemed so real. "Something was placed in my hand," Susan said. The Earth medallion I gave Lisa. Wilson reached to a small table beside the bed. On it lay an Earth medallion. Susan picked it up, examining it. It was identical to the one she had given Lisa. "They found this clutched in your hand," Wilson said. "We assumed it was yours." Susan stared at the medallion. Perhaps she had hallucinated Lisa's return, a dying mind, creating comfort. But then she turned the medallion over. On the back, freshly engraved, were words that had not been there before. "The stars are full of wonders. We will meet again." Susan smiled. She did not understand everything that had happened, but she knew the war was won. Humanity had survived, and somewhere among the stars her friend was watching, perhaps preparing for the next challenge. Earth was safe for now, and that was enough.